Welcome everyone, I'm Trish Connor-Cato, and this is the Office Basics video course. Module 1 is Excel and PowerPoint Essentials. In the first part of Module 1, we will explore the essentials of Excel, Microsoft Spreadsheet Powerhouse. We'll begin with an introduction to the interface so you become familiar with its environment. We'll move into entering data into Excel while learning about the AutoFill feature, which makes data entry more efficient. We'll save the workbook file and learn some great keyboard shortcuts along the way. Then we'll be ready to delve into performing simple calculations, and you'll get an overview of the Formulas tab of the ribbon and build basic formulas. We'll also use the 5 most common functions in Excel, which are sum, average, min, max, and count. We'll cover the difference between relative and absolute cell references while being introduced to another popular Excel function, the if function. We will learn efficient ways to format cells and how to insert rows and columns into a spreadsheet. We will learn 2 different ways to move, copy, and paste data, as well as how to insert new worksheets and reviewing printing options. The second part of this module will cover PowerPoint Essentials. PowerPoint is Microsoft's slideshow application. We will dive into building a slideshow by selecting a presentation type and populating a title slide. We'll then learn how to create new slides by inserting them as well as duplicating and editing existing slides. As we did in the Excel section, we'll have an introduction to the PowerPoint interface and learn how to move slides to different positions. Along the way, we'll learn how to format text as well as some keyboard shortcuts. We'll be introduced to making slides visually appealing to capture your audience's attention along the way, using a variety of techniques including SmartArt graphics, Format Painter, and themes. Adding graphics to slides is a way to communicate visually with your audience, so we will be inserting and formatting both images and shapes. Animating objects on a slide is another audience pleaser, and we'll learn how to choose an appropriate animation and control how it activates on the slide. We will end this module with learning how to review your presentation using spelling and grammar check and the Rehearse feature. So let's get started with Excel. The learning outcomes here are to be able to navigate Excel and create spreadsheets, and to be able to use Excel's 5 most common functions, sum, average, min, max, and count. And the way we're going to do that is by covering the following topics. We're going to start by getting an introduction to the Excel interface. Then we're going to enter data into Excel. You're going to be learning keyboard shortcuts along the way, as well as how to save your workbook file. Then we'll start performing simple calculations. You'll get an overview of the Formulas tab of the ribbon. We'll build some basic functions. And then we'll use those also known as simple functions, the common functions that I mentioned earlier. We'll use the AutoFill feature, which makes data entry more efficient. And you'll learn the difference between relative and absolute cell references. We'll move on to formatting cells, inserting rows and columns, moving, copying, and pasting data, inserting new worksheets, and ultimately we'll finish this section by learning how to print your worksheets. There are several different ways that you can launch Excel. If you had an Excel file on your system, you could double-click to open it, thereby open the application. You could also use your Start button and search for Excel. Several different ways to open it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it from my taskbar at the bottom of my screen. So if you search for it, when you find it, you can right-click on it and pin it to your taskbar so it'll always be on your taskbar in Windows. I'm going to just launch Excel from there. When you get into Excel, it brings you to the welcome screen. It says good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on the time of day at the top. And it has some new templates or different templates or tutorials that you can access from there. If you have any recent workbooks, and depending on your settings, they will show here. And on the left side, you have Home, New, Open. And then at the bottom, you have Account, Feedback, and Options. What we're going to do is we're going to just click on, right under New, we're going to just click once on Blank Workbook, and that will take us into the Excel interface. So now we get a chance to review the Excel interface. I'm going to start at the very top of the screen. That green band at the top is known as your title bar. On the left side of it, and I'm working in Excel 2021, it will give you the name of the file, which in this case, since we haven't saved this, it's Book 1, and it also gives you the name of the application Excel. To the left of that, you have the Excel icon, you have a Save icon, and you have a down arrow, which when you hover over it, it says Customize Quick Access Toolbar. Now, we don't get into the Quick Access Toolbar in this course, so don't worry about that. On the right side of the title bar, you have your search, your Microsoft search box, so you can look for features and you can get help by using search. It has your login information and then your traditional minimize, maximize, or restore and close Excel buttons. Underneath that green band, the title bar, you have your ribbon. So all of the Microsoft programs have the ribbon interface. Well, I should say most. There's a few that don't, but most do. And depending on the application, the ribbon tabs will be different. So on the Home tab in Excel, you have your font, your clipboard groups, alignment, numbers, styles, cells, and editing. So you see the group names at the bottom. So I'm pointing to the number group right now. We also have the insert, page layout, formulas, data, review, view. Now, I have a developer tab. You may not have that on your ribbon, and we're not using it for this course. You also have a help tab. And if you have the full Adobe Acrobat program on your system, you can also have an Acrobat tab on your Excel ribbon. It's a licensing agreement between Microsoft and Adobe. And I have an add-in called Power Pivot. So you may or may not have those tabs, Developer, Acrobat, or Power Pivot on your ribbon. And that's fine. We're not going to be using any of them during this course. Underneath the ribbon, you have two separate things. On the left, you have what's known as the name box. And it currently says A1. That's the cell that I'm currently in on my spreadsheet. And so if I click on cell B2, then the name box will tell me that B2 is my active cell, meaning if I type something, that's the cell it's going to go in. So that area is known as the name box. And if you hover your mouse over it, you'll see the screen tip that says name box. To the right of that, you have your formula bar. So you can look and see your actual formulas once you create them. Your formulas and functions will show in the formula bar. They can be created there. They can be edited there. So we'll revisit that area a little bit later. Then you have your worksheet, also known as a spreadsheet. Two terms are used interchangeably. The name of the file is the workbook, and a workbook can contain one or more worksheets, also known as spreadsheets. Mine, by default, when I create a new workbook, it gives me 3 sheet tabs. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen. and you'll see that I have 3 different sheet tabs: Sheet 1, Sheet 2, Sheet 3. Typically, you rename them to make more sense according to whatever is on the sheet. So your spreadsheets are organized by columns and rows. You see your column headings going across the top, your row headings going down the left, and the intersection of a column and row is known as a cell. So when I'm in column A, row 1, I am in cell A1. If I go over to column H, row 8, I'm in cell H8. Now at the bottom of the screen underneath your sheet tabs, you have a status bar. So for example, in my status bar, you'll see that I have an indicator that says num lock. And so that means my num lock button is turned on my keyboard. If I turn off num lock on my keyboard, then that shouldn't show down in my status bar anymore. So it lets me know, and you can right click in a blank area of the status bar, and those are all the things that you can see down there. And to the right of the status bar, you have a few view buttons. So right now we're in what's called normal view. You can do just about anything you need to do in Excel in normal view. The next view button to the right of that one is page layout view. If I click on that, I can actually see the borders of the pages. Now, I usually use page layout view when I'm dealing with headers and footers. I can actually do it in normal view as well, but that's just my personal preference. And the last view button that's over there is page break preview. And we don't have any data in our, so you're not going to see anything in page break preview at this moment. To the right of that, I'm going to go back to the normal view button. And to the right of all of those buttons is your zoom slider. So you can zoom in or out so you can actually see what you're working on, which is helpful. For this course, this part of this course, we're going to be building a spreadsheet of quarterly sales information for 7 make-believe salespeople. So we're going to start by entering in our salespeople names. And we're going to start in cell A2. So we're just going to type the last name, Johnson. We're just going to be using last names here. And when you press enter, it will take you down to the next cell in that same column, which you're now on cell A3. The next name is Arasco. Enter. And then we have Baez. Enter. Now I've gone ahead and entered in the last 4 salespeople, Chandler, Hughes, Finnegan, and Nicholas. And you can take a moment and get them entered in column A as well. Now we're going to put in our quarter headings. So we're going to go to cell B1 and we're going to abbreviate the word quarter. So just QTR, no period, space 1, and then press enter. Now, we don't have to type quarters 2 through 4 because of this efficiency feature that's built into Excel called AutoFill. So you're going to click back on cell B1 and you'll notice when you have the cell selected, the active cell, it has a green border around it. Now in the lower right hand corner of that cell, you'll see a green notch, and that notch is known as the fill handle. When you put your mouse on the fill handle, it looks like a black cross. Now be careful here. Let me just take a moment and show you this. If you hover your mouse directly in the middle of the cell, it looks like a thick white cross. If you put your mouse on the border of the cell, it looks like a 4-headed arrow. So a thick white cross means you're just selecting the cell. The 4-headed arrow means that you want to move it or copy it, and you'll learn how to do that later. The thin black cross means that it's on the fill handle. When it's on the fill handle, you're going to hold down your mouse key and you're going to just drag to the right. And as you're dragging, look at the screen tip. Like I'm on cell D1 right now, and the little white box pops up that says QTR3. When I go over to E1, it says QTR4, and I'm going to let go, and we didn't have to type those other quarters. That feature is known as AutoFill, and you'll get to use it again during this course. So now we're going to start entering the quarterly numbers in for their sales values. But before we do that, so far we've been pressing enter after making entries. If you want to go from left to right, you would use your tab key, as you can see me doing on my screen now. So when you press enter on a cell, it takes you down. If you tab on a cell, it takes you to the right. Because we have numbers to enter for all salespeople, I'm going to show you a little trick. You can select and enter. So let's do this. Let's select cells. And to select multiple cells, you're going to click and hold in the middle of cell B2, drag to the right until E2 is selected, and then drag down until row 8 is selected. So when you have a selection like that, if you press enter within that selection, it will go down the first column, then to the top of the second column, go all the way down. And this is the method I'm going to use to enter these numbers in. So we're going to enter all quarter 1 numbers, and then quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. I'm just pressing enter till I get back to cell B2. So make sure, and if you haven't done it, I'm selecting B2 through E8. And when you do that, B2 is the active cell. So that's the first cell that a number is going to go into. Now we'll do quarter 1 together, and then I'll populate the other quarters and you can copy them from my screen. So here we go. The first number, 54682. Press enter. And again, we're going to press enter after each of these. We have 13828. 12471. 41172. 51703. 34001. 15193. And when you press enter, you should be ready for the first number for quarter 2. Now you can see that I populated the numbers for the other quarters. So this is where you can pause the video and input the numbers for quarters 2, 3, and 4, pressing enter after each one. So now that we have our quarter headings, our sales people's last names, and our sales values in, we're going to sort this list. And we want it to be in alphabetical order by last name. So you do not have to select your data in Excel in order to be able to sort it. You're going to click anywhere on any last name in column A. And we're going to go to the Data tab on the ribbon. And on the Data tab, in the Sort and Filter group, you have a couple of presets. So you have an ascending sort arrow, which is the one that says A to Z. And then you have a descending sort arrow, which is Z to A. Now you also have a sort button. So we just want to sort in ascending order by salesperson last name. So we can just use A to Z. You use the sort button when you want to have a multiple level sort. Sort by this, then by that, then by this. And you can actually sort by up to 99 levels in Excel. So we're in the last name column, and we're going to click that A to Z button, and it sorted all the data. So every salesperson has the corresponding correct numbers next to their names now. Some handy keyboard shortcuts will be creeping up along the way during this section. And one of the first ones I want to introduce you to is save. So there's multiple ways of saving. I mean, there's a save icon on the quick access toolbar. You could click on the file tab and get to save or save as, all of those choices. But I like using the keyboard shortcut. So you're going to hold down your control key and you're going to type the letter S. Control S is save in all Office applications. Now, because this workbook hadn't been saved before, the Save As dialog box came up because we never gave it a name. It has the default name of Book 1. So you want to navigate to whatever directory you want to save your work from this course into. And I'm already in my directory. And we're going to call this Excel Essentials. And I'm going to go ahead and click save. So you'll notice your title bar at the top updates. You now see the actual name now that we save the file. Now we're going to perform some simple calculations. And whenever you're trying to do a calculation, whether it's a manual calculation or by using an Excel function, it has to start with the equal sign. So let's just click on cell A15. We're not going to keep these calculations in our spreadsheet at the end of the day, but we'll start in cell A15 and we'll just type in equal sign. And the scenario here is we want to know the difference between Orasco's Q1 and Q4 sales. So we're going to do subtraction. So we're going to just take our mouse and click on cell E2, his Q4 sales. We're going to do a minus sign, and then we're going to click on cell B2. You want to avoid typing as much as possible when you're doing calculations in Excel because typos are the #1 reason for calculation errors. So notice when you select a cell, like we did with the mouse, again, you're going to get the color coding, right, that matches the color in your actual formula. So E2 is blue and B2 is red. And we're going to just press enter. So there's $26,100 difference between Orasco's sales in Q1 versus his sales in Q4. So a simple subtraction 1. Let's add up all of Orasco's quarters manually. So we're going to type an equal sign. Now I'm in A16. And we're going to click on B2, type a plus sign, C2, another plus, D2, plus, and E2. And since we're done, we don't need another plus sign. And we're going to press enter. So that's the sum of Orasco's sales for that year. Now we'd like to project that Orasco is going to make double his Q4 sales in the following year for Q4. So I'm in cell A17 and I'm going to do my equal sign and I'm going to click on E2 and I'm going to do an asterisk for multiplication and I'm going to type the number 2 and press enter. So we would like Orasco to do 79,000, a little over 79,000 in Q4 sales next year. And we're curious about what half of Johnson's Q2 sales would be. So in A18, go ahead and do your equal sign. Click on C7. Use your /, that's the divisional slash. And we're going to do 2. So we divided his sales by 2. So we got to do subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division. And then you're going to select those cells A15 through 18, and you can press delete on your keyboard. We've built some basic calculations, and before we get into using Excel functions, we're going to review the syntax of a function. The syntax means the expected form. Like, you can't just use the sum function without using the proper syntax. So on this slide are the functions that we're going to be using during this course. And so we have the sum function, which returns a total. And its syntax, like calculations, it begins with the equal sign, the name of the function, and it's not case sensitive. And then its arguments are in parentheses, and they're separated by commas. For the sum function, the only required argument is one number. So you're having it add one number. That's it. Any arguments that are in square brackets are optional. I don't believe you're limited to the number of arguments you can have for the sum function. The average function returns an average, and it has the same syntax as the sum function, except it's the average function. The max function returns the highest number. Again, same syntax. And min returns the lowest number. And then you have count. And there are actually 3 variations of count that we're going to discuss. Sum, average, max, min, and count are the 5 most common functions in Excel. So count recounts the number of selected cells that contain numbers, only numbers. Count A, and you can think of it as count all in a way, that will count the number of selected cells that are not empty. So it could be numbers in the cells, it could be text. And then count blank counts the number of selected cells that are empty. And so count and count A have the same syntax. Value 1 is the only required argument, and you have an unlimited amount of optional value arguments. Count blank has one argument, and it's a range of cells like B2 through B8. And by the way, with all of these, from sum to count A, you don't have to use an individual cell as a number. You can do a range of cells. So B3 or B2 to B8, C3 through C7, whatever the range is. And then at the very bottom, we have the if function. We're going to calculate 2 different bonuses for our salespeople using the if function. It checks whether a condition is met and returns one value if the condition is true and another value if false. So its syntax is, the first argument is logical test. That is a condition that has to be able to be adjudicated to either being true or false. And then you get to give it an optional value if true and an optional value if false. If you exclude those 2 secondary arguments, your return will either be true or false. So let's do this one in plain English as an example. If it is cold outside, let's say being cold outside is the logical test. If it is cold outside, then the test is true. And then we could say, stay inside by the fireplace for the value if true. If the logical test is false, meaning it's not cold outside, then the value if false could be, go outside and play in the sunshine. Something like that. So now we're going to go to Excel and use these functions. Let's just click on cell B10 here. And notice in the cell itself, it has the result of your formula. But if you look at the formula bar, it shows the actual formula. So when you use formulas and functions in Excel, their result shows in the cell on the spreadsheet. The actual function or formula will display in the formula bar. So you can tell that by looking at it like this, you can tell that $223,050 was not typed into cell B10. It is the result of that formula. And now we're going to select B10. And if you click and hold on it and go to your right, you'll select B and C10 and press delete. We're going to use a function, which is a more efficient way of getting the total of the quarters. So click in cell B10 and go to the Formulas tab on your ribbon. Now the group I want to narrow in on is the function library group, which is the first group of commands on that Formulas tab. There in the function library group, they have we'll deal with AutoSum later, but they have recently used functions. So to keep a short list of any function that you use, right? And you can get back to it easily from recently used. And then they have categories of functions. And you may not know the category of the function that you're looking for. We're looking for the sum function. So regardless of whether you know the category or not, that first button in the function library group, insert function, go ahead and click it. And you're going to just type the word sum and press enter. So you were in the search for a function box, you typed sum, you press enter, and now you get a list of functions that begin with sum. And we want the actual sum function, which is selected. So go ahead and click OK. And now you get the function arguments box. Whatever is in that number 1 box, you're going to just use your backspace to get rid of it. And if you look at your spreadsheet in cell B10, it has equal sum, open and closing parentheses. You're sitting in that number 1 box in the function arguments dialog box. You're going to take your mouse over to your spreadsheet. You're going to click and hold on cell B2, and you're going to drag down to cell B8. So now in that number 1 box, it says B2 colon B8. The colon indicates a range. So the first cell is B2, the last cell is B8, and it includes all the cells in between them. If you look to the right of that number 1 box, it starts showing you, as many as it can display, the individual numbers in those individual cells. Now, there are 2 places in this box where it shows the result of your calculation before you click OK. You'll see the result right there. And also at the bottom, you'll see the formula result right there. And now you can go ahead and click OK. Now, I'd like you to create a sum function using the Insert Function button in cell C10 for the cells C2 through C8. And when you're done, the screen should look like mine. Now, the really cool thing here, it's another use of AutoFill. We really only had to use the sum function for quarter 1. So let's go ahead and delete what's in cell C10 and click on B10. And you're going to grab its fill handle. Remember, it'll look like a thin black cross. You're going to click and hold, and you're going to drag it across till you get to column E and let go. So if you click on B10 and you look at your formula bar, it says it's the sum of B2 through B8. You click on C10, it adjusts. It's C2 through C8. Then you have D2 through D8 and E2 through E8. So you really only have to get it right once. And then you can use AutoFill to fill it where you need it to be filled. Now, I think we'll all agree that using the sum function was more efficient than when we first started and we did equal B2 plus B3 plus B4, so on and so forth. But it can be even more efficient. So on the Formulas tab of the ribbon, let's talk about that AutoSum button, right? Excel can automatically create a sum function for you. So let's say we wanted to get the sum, the annual sales per salesperson. So let's click on cell F1 first, and we'll type annual sales and press enter. And so we want annual sales by salesperson. We're going to do this starting with Erasco. And what we're going to do is on the Formulas tab in the Function Library group, you're going to click the upper half of the AutoSum button. So notice if I hover over that button, it has an upper half and it has a lower half. Click the upper half. And notice how it automatically gives you the sum function. And what it does is it looks to the left or above where you are, and it will detect the numbers and it will select them for you. So we do want the sum of B2 through E2. All we have to do is press enter. So there's the annual sales for Erasco. Now, click on F2, Erasco's annual sales. And this time, you're going to put your mouse on the fill handle and you're going to double click. So another little efficiency shortcut for you. When you want to fill down, you can double click the fill handle and it will fill all the way down until it runs into a blank cell. So now we have the annual sales for all of our salespeople, and we only had to do AutoSum once. We will deal with column width and all of that in a little while, but for right now, our focus is on getting our formulas and functions in right. So let's go ahead though and put a label in column A. So in cell A10, we're going to type quarterly sales totals. And notice because there's something in column B, that column's not wide enough to display that label. But again, we'll deal with column width in a little while. So now we want to use another function. We use the sum function. That's one of the 5 most common functions in Excel. Now we're going to use the average function. So right under in cell A11, let's type quarterly sales, and notice how it brings up what you've already put in that column. Maybe you want to type quarterly sales totals again, so it gives you the ability to just put it in there, or you can keep typing and we want average, quarterly sales averages, and press enter there. Now notice because there's nothing in column B, you can see the whole thing. It almost looks like part of it is in B11, but it really is just in A11. If I click on A11 and look at the formula bar, I can see the whole thing is in there. We're going to click on B11 and we're going to type equal and we're going to do AV. And you'll see average, bunch of different average variations show up. We want just plain average. So we're going to get that in. And then we're going to just click and drag B2 through B8. And we're going to press enter. And now we're going to click back on B11 and drag the fill handle to the right to get the other quarterly averages. Let's go to cell G1 and we're going to type AVG, just the abbreviation with no period, annual sales, and press enter. And here, we're going to be on the Formulas tab of the ribbon, and we're going to go to the bottom half of the AutoSum button. So before we do that, let me just explain. This is known as a split button. They're all over Microsoft programs. Sometimes it'll be a left side and a right side, or a top and a bottom like this. When you use the top half of the button, it does whatever is first on the list on the bottom. So earlier when we did when we used the sum, AutoSum, right? It did the sum function for us automatically when we click the top half of the button. If you click the bottom half, you'll see that sum is the first thing on the list, which is activated when you use the top half. Now we want to use auto average. So we're going to select average off of the bottom half. And now look at what it did. It selected B2 through F2. Well, we don't want the annual sales in there. You know, it's looking to the left. It's selecting all the numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do it on the formula bar. I'm going to click between the F and the 2, backspace, and then just type the letter E. I only want it to go through B2 through E2. And now I'm going to press enter. And I'm going to click on that average in G2 and double click the fill handle. And go ahead and save your file again. The max function will return the maximum number out of a range of numbers. And we're going to use it now. So let's click on cell A12 and we'll type maximum sale and press your tab key just to get over to B12, where we're going to type equal and then MA, and you'll see max on the list. So that is the maximum function. And we're going to take our mouse and we're going to select B2 through B8 and press enter. And so now you can grab B12 and drag its fill handle to the right so you get the maximum sale for all of the quarters. Right underneath in cell A13, we're going to type minimum sale and tab. And we're going to type equal MI, and you're going to grab min, MIN, off of the list. And we're going to click and drag B2 through B8, enter, and then drag the fill handle to the right so you get the minimum sale amount for each quarter. So the lowest amount of sale, right, in that quarter is what you're seeing. The maximum sale and the lowest amount sale. So take a moment and type the labels that I have on my screen in cells A16, 17, and 18. Just get those labels typed in. And then we're going to learn the other common function that is used in Excel. So the count function has 3 variations that you need to know about. So let's go to cell B16 and we're going to type equal COU. So notice count comes up, right? And it says it counts the number of cells in a range that contains numbers. Then there's count A. Click on count A. Counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So it would count numbers, it would count text, it just wouldn't count empty cells. And then count blank is used to count empty cells. So count only counts the number of cells in a range that has numbers. Count A will do text and numbers, and count blank will count any empty cells. We're going to use all 3 of these. So for total salespeople, we want to use count A. We'll start with count A. And then we're going to select A2 through A8 and press enter. So your result should have 7. So those are not numbers. We had to use count A because that will count numbers and text. And then we want a count of our numeric cells for the quarters. So we're going to do in cell B17, it's going to be equal COU. And this time we want to use count. So I'm going to just get count in there. And I'm going to select B2 through E8 and press enter. So there are 28 numbers. 7 salespeople times 4 quarters, right? And then we want the total amount of empty cells in column A. So now we're on cell B18 and we're going to do equal COU, and we're going to grab count blank. And I'm going to start with cell A1 and drag down to A13 and press enter. So we have 2 blank cells in column A from A1 to A13. Now let's go to cell A1 and just type 2021. We'll make believe this was last year's data. So type 2021 and press enter. And notice that B18 now says 1 because that cell is no longer blank. Now we're going to get set up to use the if function to calculate the bonuses for the salespeople based on their annual sales totals. So the deal here is that they have to have at least $100,000 in annual sales total in order to get a 5% bonus. To set this up, we're going to go to cell M1 and we're going to just put 5% in that cell. Just type 5% in that cell and press enter. And then we're going to go to cell H1 and we're going to type 5% bonus. And this is the column we'll calculate the bonus in. Press enter. So we're going to go ahead and do our equal sign and type the letter I. And if shows up at the top of the list, it's already selected. And I'm going to tab on my keyboard to get it in the cell. You'll notice right underneath it, you'll see the syntax, right? So right now, it's looking for the logical test argument. That's why that one is bold. Once we get that in and type a comma, then value if true will be bold. So our logical test, we want to see if the annual sales total is greater than or equal to $100,000. That will qualify a salesperson for the bonus. So we're going to click on cell F2. That's Erasco's annual sales total. And we're going to type the greater than symbol, the equal sign, and then 100,000, no punctuation. And that's our logical test. Type a comma. And you'll notice now, like I said, underneath it in the syntax, you'll see that the value if true optional argument is bold, meaning that's what it's expecting from you. So if F2 is greater than or equal to 100,000, we want it to times it by the 5% in cell M1. So we're going to click on cell F2. We're going to do our asterisk for multiplication. And then we're going to go click on cell M1. And so it'll be whatever their annual sales is times 5% will be the amount of their bonus. We're going to type a comma, and you'll notice that value if false is bold. And if they don't meet that threshold of greater than or equal to $100,000, unfortunately, their bonus will be 0. So I'm typing a 0 there. Now, you've already seen you don't have to type the closing parentheses when you're building it in the cell. It will give it to you automatically. So let's go over this one again. If the annual sales amount is greater than or equal to 100,000, then times the annual sales amount by 5%. If it's not greater than or equal to 100,000, then it's going to be 0. Press enter. So we can see it calculated a 5% bonus for Erasco. His annual sales exceed $100,000. Now click on that 5% bonus, and this is the section where you're going to learn about the difference between relative and absolute cell addresses. When you click on H2, go to the fill handle and double click, and you're going to get the rest of the column populated by zeros. So let's explore what happened here, why it didn't autofill down properly like it's done for us before. Let's start by clicking on cell F2. And when I look up at the formula bar, that's the sum of B2 through E2. Now click on cell F3. When you copy it down, it's automatically updating the row reference. So now it's B3 through E3. If I keep clicking down, you'll see it's B4 through E4. So by default in Excel, cell references in formulas and functions are relative to where the formula is. That's why when we double clicked on that 116,599 to fill it down, it automatically adjusted relative to where the formula is. That's its normal behavior. That is when you don't do anything to a cell address, it is a relative reference by default. Now, click on cell H2. So cell H2 worked, right? It's like F2. If F2 is greater than or equal to 100,000, then F2 times M1. And if it's false, then give it a 0. Now click on H3. Because we copied it down by using AutoFill, it's making the cell references relative to where the formula is. So now it's looking for something in cell M2 because we were in H2 and it was referring to M1. When we go down to H3, it refers to F3 and M2. When we go to H4, it's looking for something in M3. We want it to absolutely always refer to M1. That's where that 5% is. And we have to make the reference to cell M1 what's known as an absolute reference. So how do we do that? Click on cell H2. Go up to your formula bar and click anywhere on the M1 reference. I'm in between the M and the 1. And on your keyboard, you're going to press function key 4. Press your F4 key. So it puts a $ in front of the M and a $ in front of the 1. That is known as an absolute reference. It will absolutely only refer to cell M1 if you copy that formula down either using autofill or copy and paste. Doesn't matter. It's going to absolutely stick to that one reference, but we want it to update the reference in column F so we get the appropriate annual sales total for each salesperson. So now you're going to press enter and you're going to click back on H2 and double click its fill handle again. And you see that it worked well now. If you click on H3, well, Baez gets a 0 because they didn't meet the threshold of 100,000 for their annual sales. Everybody else is getting the 5% calculation. And you notice when I'm looking at H3 Baez's, in the formula bar, it's absolutely referring to M1, but it adjusted relatively for column F. And if you look at the other ones in H, they're all referring to M1. That's not moving. Go ahead and save your workbook. Now we're going to up the ante. We're going to use another if function, and we're going to calculate 2 different bonuses. So if their total annual sales are greater than or equal to 100,000, they'll get a 5% bonus. If their total annual sales are greater than or equal to 140,000, they'll get a 10% bonus. And we're going to be doing this by nesting functions. And that means a function inside of a function. I'll explain it as we go. The first thing we're going to do is go to cell L1 and type 10% and press enter. And then we're going to go to cell I1 and we're going to type 5% or 10% bonus. And then press enter. We're going to do our equal if in I2. And our logical test is we're going to click on F2. We're going to do our greater than equal, and we'll do 140,000 first. And we're going to do our comma. If that's true, then it's going to be click on F2, do your asterisk for multiplication, and click on L1. And then immediately press F4, function key 4, to make that an absolute reference, right? We want it to absolutely always refer to L1. So when we copy it down, we don't get an error. So that's the value if true. They get a 10% bonus if their annual sales total is greater than or equal to 140,000. And now we're going to type a comma. And for the value if false, we're going to nest another if function. So for value if false, you're going to type I and then tab or double click if to get it in there, right? So if F2 is not greater than or equal to 140,000, what do we want it to do? We want it to do another test. So we're going to click on F2 again, and we're going to do our greater than equal 100,000. So if it's not greater than or equal to 140,000, it's going to test to see if it's greater than or equal to 100,000. We're going to type a comma. We're going to click on F2 again, do our asterisk for multiplication. So if that is true, if it's greater than or equal to 100,000, we want to calculate that 5%, which is in M1. And when you click on M1, immediately press F4 to make it absolute. And now we're going to do another comma and a 0. So let's talk about this before we press enter. If F2 is greater than or equal to 140,000, it's going to take F2 and times it by 10%, and that would be the 10% bonus. If it is not greater than or equal to 140,000, it's going to do another test, and it's going to say if the annual sales total is greater than or equal to 100,000. If that is true, then it's going to times it by 5%. If neither of those tests are true, it's going to be a 0. Go ahead and press enter. And it tells me this. So in this one, we would have needed to type 2 parentheses at the end because we have a nested function. Every open parenthesis must have a close. So we would need 2 parentheses at the end. And as long as I've been using Excel, I often forget to do this. But now I know that Excel will fix it for me. And that's what this message is saying. We found a typo in your formula and tried to correct it. So notice they put the double parentheses at the end for me. And I'm going to accept this correction by clicking yes. So now I'm going to click on I2, double click its fill handle, and we'll see the difference between the numbers in columns H and I. So Orasco was over 100 but less than 140. He gets the 5% bonus. Baez still didn't meet the initial threshold, so they're on 0. Chandler, Finnegan, and Nicholas all are getting the 5% bonus because they didn't make the 140,000 threshold. But if you look at Hughes and Johnson, they're getting the 10% because they exceeded the 140,000 annual sales threshold. Pretty cool. Little tricky at first when you start nesting functions, but just follow your syntax so you know where you are. Go ahead and save your workbook. So with Excel, you want to make sure that your data is correct first, and then you want to move on to formatting your data. So we're going to start formatting some data now. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to put my mouse directly on column heading A, click and hold, and drag across until column I is selected. Then I'm going to put my mouse between any two of those column headings and double click. And it will expand each column that was selected to show its widest entry. Now you can manually put your mouse between columns and drag them, but then you're basing it on what you see on the screen. And so you have over 1 million rows on every Excel spreadsheet. There might be a wider entry outside of your viewing area, and then the column width wouldn't be accommodating it. So the most efficient way is the way we just did it, selecting all your column headings and then double clicking between any two of those to get your column width correct. Now we're going to select most of the numbers in our data set. So I'm going to start with cell B2, and I'm going to drag all the way to the right until I get to I2, and then I'm going to drag down until I get to I13. So we just don't want the numbers where we did the count function to be selected. And now that we have those selected, on the Home tab of the ribbon in the number group, you're going to go ahead and click the $sign, which is the accounting number format. And so the way it is on my system, when it's a blank or a 0, it just shows a little dash in the cell, and I'm comfortable with that. So the accounting number format has been applied to all of the value cells of our sales data. Now, in cell F10, we're going to calculate our annual sales total. And so I'm going to just use the sum function there. And actually, just to point this out to you, on the Home tab of the ribbon, in the editing group to the right, you also have an AutoSum button. I'm going to actually click on AutoSum. But see, when I do it there, it's going to select the cells to the left of where I am. So I'm going to just press Escape to get rid of that. And in cell F10, I'm going to type equal SU and get my sum function in. And then I'm going to click and drag F2 through F8 and press Enter. And we want that number to be bold and in a different color. So click on F10. On the Home tab of the ribbon, in the font group, you can do, well, actually, let me give you a shortcut key for this one. Do Control B, and that will make the number bold. And if you wanted to make it italicized, you could do Control I. And now that I italicized it, you notice on my screen, it gives me pound signs. When you see that, it means the number is now too wide because of the formatting we did to display in the column. So I'm going to go and double click between column headings F and G. And now I can see that number. And we want to make it have green font. So in that same font group, with a letter A that has the red underneath it is your font color. Going to do the drop down, and I'm going to select green. And you can select any green that you want. Now, we could make these cells and these numbers and everything look more visually appealing. We could do it manually, or we could use a great feature known as cell styles in Excel. So this is really cool. We're going to select B1 through I1, and then you're going to hold down your Control key, and you're going to select A2 and drag it all the way down through A13. So that's how you select two different separated groups of cells, right? By using your control key. Now just watch my screen for a minute. If I select the headings, right, starting with B1 through I1, and then I go and I click on A2, it's going to deselect those. So you need to use your control key to be able to select multiple separated ranges. And on the home tab of the ribbon, in the styles, you'll see a styles group. Those are cell styles, and we want to open the group. So to open the group, on its right side, you'll see the More button. It's a down arrow with a line across the top of it. I'm pointing to it on my screen. And that shows you all the different cell styles that are available. Now, they have them categorized: good, bad, and neutral, data and model, titles and headings, theme cell styles, number formats, all of those different headings that you're going to be seeing. And what we want to use under theme cell styles, we're going to choose accent 1. So now if you click away on a blank cell, you'll see how it gave that blue background and white font to the selected cells. Now, let's select our numbers. So I'm going to start in cell B2. And I'm going to drag all of the numbers, and I'm actually going to drag the whole space there. So I'm leaving out our count numbers, rows 16, 17, and 18. We're leaving those out. So we have all of our numbers selected, as well as some empty cells in the range. And we're going to open up cell styles again. And so when I'm using themed cell styles, I usually say within the same group. So this time, I'm going to do 20% accent. And when I click away, it's a lighter blue background, and the font is black. Now notice, your cell style overrules any formatting that you did. So on that total of, our total annual sales here, it undid what we did. So go ahead and make that font green again and make it bold and italicized again, because your cell style will undo all of that. And go ahead and apply the 20% accent to cell A1 as well. So now we decide we can't delete the 10% and the 5% from L1 and M1 because they're being referenced in our bonus columns. If we delete them, we'll get an error in our formulas. But we don't need them to be showing on this sheet. So we're going to hide those two columns. I'm going to click and drag column heading L and M, right-click on either one of them, and choose Hide. Now you can visually tell that columns are hidden two ways. First of all, it jumps from letter K to letter N in your column headings, and between the K and the N, you have a double pipe symbol. In order to unhide columns, you would have to select the columns surrounding the hidden columns. So I would have to select K and N, and then right-click and unhide. Go ahead and hide L and M again. We're going to use the same method to hide rows 16, 17, and 18. So I'm going to click and hold on 16 and drag down to 18, right-click on any selected one, and hide. Same thing, it's skipping row numbers, and you have the double pipe symbol between, well, it's actually not a pipe when it's horizontal. It's a horizontal pipe between 15 and 19. Go ahead and save. Now let's say we want a blank row between rows 1 and 2. When you insert a row in Excel, it goes above the row that you're selecting. So we're going to right click on the row 2 row header, right on the number 2, and we're going to choose Insert, and we get that blank row between rows 1 and 2. And now you're going to select cells A1 and A2. And on the Home tab of the ribbon, you're going to click on Merge and Center in the alignment group. So it makes it one cell. It merged those two cells together, and it was able to center, horizontally center 2021 in those cells. We also want it vertically centered. So in that alignment group, I'm pointing to the middle align button, and I'm going to click it. And now it's both horizontally and vertically centered in that cell. We also would like a blank column between columns E and F. So when you're inserting new columns, they go to the left of the selected column. So I'm going to right click on the F column heading and choose Insert. And I get the blank column between what was E and F. Now the blank one is F. And the width of column F, I'm going to just manually size it down by dragging its right border. Doesn't need to be that wide. Put another blank column, narrow blank column, between columns H and I. And your spreadsheet should look like mine, similar to mine. It's more visually appealing than it was before we started doing these formatting things. And if you have to be working on numbers, it's nice to have some visual appeal. Now I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to move, copy, and paste data. Let's go ahead and unhide rows 17 through 19. So I'm going to select row headings 16 and 20. Right click and unhide. And then I'm going to select the data that's there in columns A and B. So A17 through B19. Now, if I am moving or copying something on the same worksheet, I'm going to use the technique that I'm getting ready to show you. And that is without giving any actual official commands. It's a drag and drop operation. And so earlier I said if you put your mouse, I went over the different ways your mouse pointer can look when it's on a cell or a selection. And one of the ways is it can look like a four-headed arrow when you put it on a border of the cell. Put your mouse on the bottom border of that selection. When it looks like a four-headed arrow, click and hold and drag it down about 5 cells and let go. So you just moved it, which is the same as cut and paste. Now I'm going to have you move it back. So I'm going to put my mouse on the top border, or any border really. Well, I deselected it, which is what I did. And I'm going to drag it back up so it's in row 17, starting in row 17. So when you just have a cell or a range selected and you put your mouse on the border of it, you can drag and drop it to a new location. It's the same as a cut and paste. Now let's say we wanted to copy it down to row 24. It's going to be almost the same. So it's already selected. I'm going to put my mouse on the border so it's a four-headed arrow. This time I'm going to hold down my control key and notice that the four-headed arrow now looks like a mouse pointer with a plus sign attached to it. I'm going to click and hold and drag it down to row 24. Let go and then let go of control. So that's a copy. That's the same as copy and paste, but you just dragged it and dropped it. Now notice because I copied it, the numbers are different because it's relative references, right? So it's updating and it's not finding right information or the same information. So we're going to go ahead and delete. You're going to select row headings 24 through 26. right click, and delete. So that's kind of how that works. All right. Now, let's select 17 and 18 and their data. So A17 through B18. And this time, let's say we just want to copy those cells to another sheet. Now, before we do this, I already have a sheet 2 and a sheet 3. Actually, I'm going to deselect that. I'm going to get rid of my sheet 2. And if you have a sheet 2 and a sheet 3, you can delete them as well. I'm right-clicking on sheet 2 and I'm deleting. Right-clicking on sheet 3 and deleting. Like I said, my default setting when I go into Excel is to give me 3 worksheets. Your default might be a little bit different. And after we finish this section, I'll show you the default. But in the meantime, let's say you only have one sheet and you need another sheet. You can click that plus sign to the right of sheet 1 to get a new sheet. And now it's calling it sheet 5 or sheet 4 or whatever. I had another one in here earlier that I deleted off video. Now I'm going to go back to sheet 1 and I'm going to select A17 through B18. And on the home tab of the ribbon in the clipboard group, I'm going to click on copy. And then I'm going to click on my new sheet and I'm going to click on paste on the home tab. So there we have it. And again, it's giving me an error here if I look, right? Because there are no numbers on this sheet. So I'm going to just select what's in column B and delete it and just make believe and click between column headings A and B. Make believe we just wanted the labels. So that's how you do an official copy and paste. Now, on sheet 1, let's select A17 and A18. And on the home tab of the ribbon in the clipboard group, you're going to do cut. Go to your next sheet tab, click like a couple of cells down in column A, and then use paste. Now, the keyboard shortcuts for this, go back to sheet 1. So it cut it here, right? It's not there anymore on sheet 1, but you still have those cells selected. Go back to sheet 5. They're still selected over here. So now with those 2 cells selected, you're going to do Control C. Control C is copy. Go back to sheet 1, click in cell A17, and Control V as in Victor is paste. If you do Control X here, that's cut. Now notice it's still there, but it has a running border around it. Then you could go to go somewhere else, and I'll just do it on this sheet. I'll just go down to A23 and do Control V, which is paste. And then because I don't really want that there, I'm going to just use my regular move to move it back up. So several different ways, shortcut keys. If you're on the same worksheet, you can drag and drop. If you're just dragging and dropping, it's moving. If you're holding down Control while you're doing it, it's copying. Or you can use the copy, cut, and paste commands either from the ribbon or the shortcut keys. On sheet 1, go ahead and hide rows 17, 18, and 19 again. And then go to your new sheet. And we're going to delete this sheet. So you're going to just right-click and delete. If a sheet has anything on it, even if it was just a space bar or a period in a cell, it's going to prompt you to confirm the deletion. If the sheet is totally blank, it will just delete it. So we're going to click delete to confirm. And before we move on, I want to just show you where that setting is that controls how many sheets you get when you start a blank workbook. So we're going to go to the File tab, and all the way at the bottom on the left, you're going to click on Options. In the Excel Options dialog box, you're on the General tab on the left. And right here is include this many sheets under when creating new workbooks. So mine is set to 3 by default. I usually use at least 3 sheets in the workbook. You can set yours to 1 or whatever number you normally want. You can always add and delete them. I'm going to click OK to get out of that. Why don't we rename sheet 1? So I'm going to go down to the sheet tab and I'm going to double click it and I'm going to just type 2021 sales and then press enter. You want your sheet names to reflect the data on the sheet. You don't want to have like sheet 1 through sheet 20 in a workbook and have to click on each one to figure out what the data is. We're going to click the plus sign to the right of 2021 sales, again, to get a new sheet to the right of it. And we're going to double click and name that sheet 2022 sales. And press enter. And so we have our 2021 data already completed, formatted, looks great, visually appealing. The math is right. We use cell styles as an efficiency tip. We set up a new spreadsheet for 2022 sales, which we're not going to get to until next year, but at least we have that sheet tab there. And now the last thing we need to look at is how to go about printing your worksheet. Well, I'm big on shortcut keys. I'm going to do Control P. Control P is print preview and print in all of the Office programs. And when I look at this, I see that this is not all fitting on this sheet, right? So if I look down at the bottom, it's giving me 3 sheets. Down at the very bottom in print preview, it's showing me I'm looking at page 1 of 3. I can use the right arrow and it's putting the rest of that stuff on that sheet, and then right arrow again and the rest of it. So there's a couple of things I can do here to make it fit better on one sheet. One of the things I'd like to do is come over here on the left and change the orientation from portrait to landscape. That made it a little bit better, but it's still not fitting there, right? We'll leave it on landscape. And we are going to go to the back arrow at the top of the screen band to get back into the Excel interface. And this is where Page Break Preview, one of the view buttons we saw early on when it was totally empty, will come in handy. So down to the right of your status bar, where your view buttons are, the last view button there is Page Break Preview. Let's go ahead and click on that view button. So in here, you can actually see the page breaks and you can manipulate them if you wanted to. So the first thing I'm going to do, these dashed lines, those are system set page breaks. I'm going to put my mouse pointer on the rightmost dashed line, click and hold, and drag it to the right. So I got rid of one of the 3 pages. Now I'm going to just try this. It's going to scale it for me. So I'm going to grab the remaining now solid line and drag that all the way over to the right into the gray area. Now I only have 1 page. Now let's see what it looks like in print preview. So I'm going to do Control P and it's still readable. So we're able to fit it all onto 1 page, and then you could go ahead and if you connect it to a printer, you could print it out, whatever you need it to do. Now notice here, the setting, it defaults to printing active sheets. Let's say you had 5 different worksheets you wanted to print. You would do the drop down and you could select all 5 sheets and choose print active sheets or leave it on print active sheets. Or if you only had 5 sheets, you could print the entire workbook. So let's do the back arrow here. We're not going to actually print. And I'm going to go back to normal view. So that's that first of the 3 view buttons to the right of your status bar will take you back to normal view. And And at this point, we're pretty much done with this, so we can save and close this file. And there's a shortcut key for that. It's pretty much universal across all of the Microsoft programs. It functions a little bit differently in Microsoft Access, but we're going to hold down your control key and you're going to type SW. S is save the file, W is close the file. And you can then go ahead and close your Excel application. So we've gone over Excel Essentials. And at this point, you should be able to navigate Excel and create spreadsheets and be able to use Excel's 5 most common functions: sum, average, min, max, count, and its 2 other variations. And now we're ready for the second half of Module 1, which covers PowerPoint Essentials. Our learning outcomes here are how to navigate the PowerPoint interface and manipulate its core components, and how to design presentations with templates, themes, and layouts. We'll get there by covering these topics. We'll get started by selecting a presentation type, navigating the PowerPoint interface, building a presentation, editing text using some keyboard shortcuts, and then we'll get our text formatted. We'll move on to inserting and formatting images, inserting and formatting shapes, arranging and aligning objects, animating objects on a slide, and ways to review your presentation. So I launched PowerPoint from my taskbar. Of course, you can go and search for it on your computer. You can use your Windows key and get to your programs. And just like Excel, when you go in, it's on the welcome screen. And at the top, it shows you a couple of templates, right? They have gotten really great with some of the templates they have. Like they have a 6-chart dashboard template, color-coded org chart template. Some of these are tutorials. And on the left side, if we go to New, you'll see that most of the templates that are not specialty ones like the dashboards are just different colorations and fonts. So those are really just themes. When I'm building a presentation, unless it's a specialty one like a dashboard, I like to start with a blank presentation and apply my theme after I get the presentation built. So what we're going to do is we're going to just click once on New Presentation here. So we start out by selecting our presentation type. In this case, it's a blank one. And now we're in the PowerPoint interface. It has a title bar just like Excel. It says Presentation 1 PowerPoint. Has a little bit of a quick access toolbar over here where you can start your slideshow from the beginning, from the current slide, and you can save. And it even has an open command there, on mine anyway. You have your search box, and on the right, you have your login information, traditional window control buttons here. Underneath that, you have the PowerPoint ribbon, right? It has home tabs, some of the same things like the clipboard group that you saw in Excel, the font group that you saw in Excel. You have an insert tab, which we'll be using, design, which we'll also be using. We have a transitions tab, animations tab, which we'll come back to during this course, slideshow tab, which we'll definitely be using. We have a review tab where you would want to do your spell check, right? You have a view tab where you have different views. Recording tab. Nowadays, you can actually do screen recording. So I can come into PowerPoint and record what I'm doing in Excel. You also have a help tab, and you may or may not have Acrobat. I'm going to go back to the home tab. On the left side of your screen, you currently have one slide there. That's called the navigation pane, right? And then in the middle of your screen where you actually have a slide, that is called the slide pane. You also have a ruler at the top and on the left side of the slide pane. And if it's not there, go to your View tab, and in the Show group, make sure a ruler is checked, and go ahead and check Guides as well. Guides will help you when you're placing stuff on your slide. Helps you align objects that you put on a slide. The very bottom of your screen, you have your status bar, that gray band. Just like in Excel, you can right-click on a blank area, and those are the things that could show in your PowerPoint status bar. To the right, you'll see Notes. So if I click on Notes, you'll notice underneath my slide in the slide pane, I have a panel that says click to add notes, and I can expand or maximize its height or minimize its height. So if I'm doing a presentation and there's something that I want to remember to say while this slide is on the screen, I can type it into notes. The notes won't show when I'm running the slideshow. So you're able to add slide notes. You can print them out, or you could use a view in PowerPoint called Presentation View, where your audience is seeing the slideshow, and on your screen, you're seeing a little mini preview of the slide. You would see your notes and a few other things. But anyway, that's how you can get into notes. Then you have a button that says Display Settings, where you can configure them. You have comments. And comments, are like conversations back and forth. If this is being shared with multiple users, you can be having a conversation about the presentation by using your comments. And then you have a couple of view buttons. We are in normal view. You have slide sorter view, which I'll show you later, and reading view, which takes up the full screen and to hide your ribbon and everything. You also have slideshow view button there, and then your zoom slider. In PowerPoint, when you select a template, in our case, we selected the blank presentation template, it gives you one slide known as a title slide. And it gives you instructions right in the slide pane. So where it says click to add title, you're going to click, and you're going to type PowerPoint Essentials. And then where it says click to add subtitle, you're going to click, and you're going to type Learnit Video Course. So we're going to build a slide presentation based on the topics that we're covering in PowerPoint. And we're going to do it in PowerPoint as we're covering these topics. So now we want to add another slide to our presentation. On the Home tab of the ribbon, in the Slides group, you're going to see the New Slide drop down. And we're going to select it. So you have all of these are called slide layouts. Right? So we've already worked with the title slide. We have a title and content layout. It could be a title, and then it could be a table. It could be a bunch of different things. A picture for the content. You have a section header layout, to content, comparison, title only, blank, content with caption, and picture with caption. The one that we would like to select for our second slide is title and content. So notice now your slides have numbers. You have slide 1, slide 2, currently blank. And we're going to click where it says click to add title. And the title is going to be selecting a presentation type. And then where it says click to add text, notice it already has bullet points there. We're going to click, and we're going to type review available templates, enter, and it gives you another bullet, choose blank template. And that's what we did. We looked at some available templates, and we chose the blank one. So a lot of our slides, because of the type of presentation we're doing, would have bullet points. And I can tell you, bullet points are not good for presentations. People start zoning out if you go from one slide to the next and it's just bullet point after bullet point after bullet point. So we're going to make it a little bit more visually appealing so that your audience will be attentive. So I'm going to show you another way of getting a new slide into your presentation. We're going to leave this selecting a presentation type slide with the bullet points the way it is for right now. We'll ultimately delete it. But right now, in your navigation pane on the left, you're going to right click on the second slide and you're going to choose duplicate slide. So it made a duplicate of it, right? So on the duplicate, which is slide 3, you're going to select both of those bullet points and press delete. Now notice it has a faded out bullet point right there, but this is a title and content slide. So you see these little placeholders here. Like I said, you could have a table, you could have a chart, you could have a SmartArt graphic, a 3D model, pictures, stock images, video, even icons on a slide. We're going to choose the SmartArt graphic. I prefer this than using bullet points. So go ahead and select SmartArt graphic. You'll notice on the left there's categories. We're going to click on the process category. And there is a SmartArt graphic. It's called the basic chevron process if you hover your mouse over it. It looks like 3 kind of right pointing arrows. And you can click it once and choose OK, or double click it. So now it got rid of that placeholder bullet point and it inserted the SmartArt graphic. And it also opened on the left side a text pane. Now, if it didn't open a text pane, I'll close mine by using the X in the upper right hand corner. If that didn't open automatically, on the left side of the SmartArt graphic frame, you'll see a left pointing arrow, and you can click that to open your text pane. Now, you can type directly on each of the graphics, but it's better to use the text pane. Click in your text pane next to the first bullet point, and you're going to type Review Available Templates. And you can use your down arrow to get to the next bullet point. And you're going to type Choose Blank Template. And we don't need the third bullet point, so we're going to press Delete. And now you can click on a blank area of your slide. And for right now, let's go to the View tab and get rid of our guide. We'll show the guides later, but get rid of your guides by unchecking them in the show group. And I would prefer, if I was sitting in an audience looking at a presentation, I would prefer to see this slide with more visual interest than this one with the bullet points. So let's go ahead on slide 2 in the navigation pane on the left. You're going to right click and you're going to choose Delete Slide. And now in the navigation pane, I'm going to right click on the second slide and duplicate it. And now I'm going to click and select the text in the title box. And this one is navigating the PowerPoint interface. I'm going to select the SmartArt graphic. And I'm going to select both bullet points in the text pane. And with them selected, we're going to end up with 5 bullet points here. We're going to type Review, Title Bar, Quick Access Toolbar, Search Box. When I press Enter, I get another bullet point. And it will keep sizing them the more you create. So this one's going to be Review Ribbon. Enter. Review Navigation and Slide Panes. Review Status Bar. Review Notes pane. So that's what we did when I gave you a tour of the interface. You can go ahead and close that text panel. And just notice how it actually evenly spaced and resized each of those SmartArt graphic parts, each of the arrows. Now let's say we wanted another slide and we wanted it to be a title only slide, and we really meant to do it earlier, but we're going to do it at this point and then move it to where we want it to be. So with slide 3 still selected, we're going to go to the Home tab, do your New Slide drop down, and choose Title Only. Click where it says Click to Add Title, and you're going to type Building a Presentation. And then we want this, since this is the only thing that's going to be on the slide, we want it to be middle aligned on the slide, right? So we're going to do that now. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on the frame of the text box there. And just be aware of this. Click anywhere within the word presentation first. And look at the frame of your text box. It has a dashed line going around it. If you click on the frame now, it's a solid line, and you want it to be a solid line. And if you notice on your ribbon, you have an extra tab at the end now called Shape Format. We're going to go to the Shape Format tab, and over to the right in the Arrange group, you're going to do the Align drop down, and you're going to choose Align Middle. So that text box is in the middle of the slide, and we didn't have to manually do that. We can use the Align group for that kind of thing. And with the text box still selected, go back to Align and choose Align Center. And so that didn't appear to work. It should have horizontally centered it. So I'm going to go to the Home tab, and on the Home tab, I am going to do the Center Alignment button. There's always more than one way. Should have worked the first time. It may have worked for you. So now we have it. The text box itself is centered vertically on the slide, and the text inside of it is centered horizontally. And now we want to move slide 4 so that it's in the second position. And we could do that from the navigation pane. I'll show you another way of doing it as well. But let's, in the navigation pane, just click and hold on slide 4 and drag it up. And you'll see when it's between slides 1 and 2, you can drop it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to move it back to the 4th position, drag it back to the bottom. And on the lower right, when we went over the view buttons to the lower right side of the status bar, you want to go to Slide Sorter View. It's the one with 4 little boxes on it. Go to that view button, and I can move it here as well. So this is just another way of viewing your presentation. I'm going to grab, click and hold on slide 4 and drop it between 1 and 2. Either way you want to do it. And then I'm going to go back to the first view button, which is Normal View. Let's go back to the 4th slide, navigating the PowerPoint interface, and click anywhere on your SmartArt graphic, and then make sure it has a solid border around its frame. And this is useful for you to know. You don't have to select every part of the graphic for what we're going to do. As long as the frame is selected with that solid line, hold down your Control key and type BI. So we bolded and italicized the text. And then we decide, nah, we don't want it bolded and italicized. We're going to hold down Control and type BI again. And now it's just normal text. So you don't literally have to select the text itself or each part of the graphic. You can just select a solid border frame to do that kind of font formatting. Now, normally, I would want to wait until I get my entire presentation built to really address any formatting. But if you're going to be duplicating slides, and we're going to have a few more duplicates of slides with the SmartArt graphic, if you want to format that graphic, you should do it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, you'd have to repeat the formatting steps on each slide. So let's go to slide 3, selecting a presentation type, the first of our SmartArt graphic slides. And we're going to select the SmartArt graphic. Make sure you have that solid line around its frame. And when you do that, you get 2 contextual tabs at the end of your ribbon, SmartArt Design, which is the tab that it's on, and you have a Format tab. We want to make our SmartArt graphic look a little bit more visually appealing. So what we're going to do on that SmartArt Design tab in the SmartArt Styles group, you're going to go over to the right of the Styles group and you're going to select the More button, the down arrow with the line above it. And under 3D, I'm going to select the first one under 3D, which is Polished. And now when you look at it, you can see the SmartArt graphic almost looks like it's raised off of the slide. It just has a little bit more appeal than the flat one. And then the other thing I'm going to want to do with that graphic, I'm going to select it again, go back to SmartArt Design, and to the left of SmartArt Styles, there's a Change Colors button. Click it, and I'm going to choose under Accent 2, I'm going to choose the second one. So I'm giving it an orange kind of color. Now, I'm going to have you repeat that, give it the Polish style and the Accent 2 color on navigating the PowerPoint interface slide on your own. And when you're done, your slide 4 should look like mine. This would be a good time for us to save our presentation. So I'm going to go up to my save icon, or you can do Control S. And I'm going to go ahead and give it the name PowerPoint Essentials and save it. So now you'll see your title bar updated. So now we're going to format our titles. Let's go to slide 1. And I'm going to select both text boxes by clicking on the first one, holding down Shift, and clicking on the second one. Now on the Home tab of the ribbon, in the Drawing group, if you look at Shape Fill, it should already be the same orange color as your SmartArt graphics. If it is, you can click right on the paint bucket. If it isn't, you click the drop down and you select that orange color. And now we're going to go to the font group. And for the font color, that's the A with the red bar underneath it, we're going to do the drop down and we're going to select white. So it mimics the SmartArt graphic. Now, the only reason we're going to do this separately right now is because we don't want this format, like this is our main title slide, right? So the font is bigger than the other ones. Go to slide 2. You're going to learn a little trick here in just a few moments. Select that text box, building a presentation, and do the same shape fill color and white font. Go to slide 3. click on the title. You're going to give it the same shape fill and white font color. And now, because this is left aligned and it is on the next slide, we don't have to perform those 2 steps or 3 steps, including selecting the frame, on the subsequent slide. So with that slide selected, on the Home tab in the Clipboard group, you're going to click the Format Painter button 1 time. And then in the slide pane, just do your roller bar on your mouse to get to the next slide, navigating the PowerPoint interface. And notice your mouse looks like a mouse pointer with a paintbrush attached to it. Just click on that title box. And it painted the format from the previous slide to this one. So didn't use Format Painter on the first slide because I don't want the font size to be larger on the subsequent slides. Didn't use it on the second slide because I didn't want the titles to be centered. So all of that would be captured in Format Painter. So you learned another nice little trick. And by the way, let's say we had 10 slides and we had, more titles that are left aligned, like on slides 3 or 4. We could have double-clicked Format Painter and it would stay on, so you could just scroll down and go from slide to slide and click. And then when you're done with it, you could either click it once to turn it off or press the Escape key. So now we're going to duplicate slide 4. And the formatting that we did comes over. So at this point, we don't have to worry about the formatting. On slide 5, we're going to change the title by selecting it. And it's going to be Editing Text with Keyboard Shortcuts. Select your SmartArt graphic and display the text pane. It's almost easier to select all the bullet points and then start typing. So we're going to type select object frame to format its contents. Enter. Type, and I'm going to do CTRL in all caps, plus BI to bold and italicize text. And we can click away from it, close your text frame. I've gone ahead and duplicated slide 5. So now I have slide 6, and I'm going to have you duplicate slide 5 and create the slide that's currently on my screen. Once you're done with that, go ahead and save your presentation. Now we're ready to start inserting and formatting images. And we're going to go on the Home tab. We're going to go up to the New Slide drop down. And we're going to select the To Content slide. So because it's a new slide, none of our formatting came over. What I'm going to have you do is go to the previous slide, use Format Painter on the title text box, come back to this slide, and click where it says click to add title to get that formatting. So the To Content slide, as you can see, will allow us to put, it has 2 frames on the bottom, so we can put 2 objects, one on either side of the slide. For the title of this slide, we're going to type Inserting and Formatting Images. And then I want to show you something. In the left frame, where it says click to add text, you notice, of course, we've seen these before, those series of icons. Well, on the bottom row, you have pictures and you have stock images. Now, if you click on pictures here, go ahead and click on pictures, and it takes you to a directory on your computer. Go to the Insert tab of the ribbon. The third group is the Images group. And when you go to Pictures from there, you get to choose whether the picture is coming from your computer, from stock images, or from online pictures. So depending, if you want a picture that's on your computer, you can use the icon that's in the frame. Otherwise, if you want an online picture, you would have to use the Insert tab of the ribbon. So just keep that in mind. What we're going to do is we're going to do a stock image. So in the left frame, and we can do this from within the left frame. So you have your pictures and you have stock images. In the left frame, go ahead and click on stock images. And it'll take a moment to load them. So if you look across the top, you have different tabs. You have images, icons, cutout people, stickers, videos, illustrations, cartoon people. We're going to leave it on images, and we're going to click in the search box at the top, and we're going to type computer and press enter. So the first thing that I want to point out is, so you're seeing all of these different images that come up that are loosely, in some cases, related to computer. And I'm going to select this image right here. You can select any image you like. I'm going to select this stock image right here. It puts a check mark on it, and it lights up the insert button at the bottom, and it lets you know that you have one thing checked, right? And so on the left side, it says this is a subset of the Creative Content Library. The full library is available to Microsoft 365 subscribers. So there's more out there. I'm going to go ahead and click Insert. And it inserts the picture into that left frame. Now on the right side, click in the right frame. And we're going to go to the Insert tab. And we're going to go to our Pictures drop down. And we're going to choose Online Pictures. So it's set up where you can search Bing for online pictures. And in the search box at the top, we're going to type YouTube and press enter. So online, it's bringing you all of these YouTube icons from online. And I am going to select just this red YouTube arrow here. And insert. So now, notice underneath the YouTube arrow on the right, it says this photo by unknown author is licensed under, and it has CC, all of this stuff, okay? Anything that you find in these libraries, you can use, meaning there would not be any copyright infringement. So we have our two images on one slide. And as a matter of fact, on the right side, I'm going to just select that text box that has the attribution, the unknown author text, and I'm going to delete it. And select the picture on the left. And with the picture selected, you'll notice that there is that contextual tab on the right side of your ribbon, Picture Format tab. We're going to click on that tab. So you have a whole adjust group here on the Picture Format tab where you can do color corrections, you can change the color of the picture, you can apply artistic effects, control the transparency. Let's go to artistic effects. And I'm going to apply an artistic effect called cutout. So as you hover over them, the artistic effects, you can see how they're impacting that picture. And I'm going to find the one called cutout, which makes it look more like a graphical novel. and I'm going to select that one and apply it to that picture. The other thing I'm going to do with that picture is I'm going to give it a picture style. So you have a picture styles gallery here. And I can open that gallery. You can see all the different kinds of styles. And I'm going to find the one that's called Bevel Rectangle. And I'm going to apply that style to that picture. So using items in the adjust group and in the styles group, you can totally change the way that image looks. And let's go ahead and save our presentation. And then let's duplicate our image slide. And in the title, so this way we didn't have to format paint the title. The title, we're going to get rid of the word images and we're going to replace it with shapes. So inserting and formatting shapes. Now, one of the things that we're going to do here, well, the goal of this would be, we're going to use shapes to create a logo, for example. And so you'll learn what you need to know about shapes by doing this. On the lower half of that slide, you can go ahead and just select and delete both of those pictures. And then you can select and delete both of those frames. So it's just blank on the bottom. Now, we could do this from the Home tab. I'm just used to doing it on the Insert tab. So we're going to go to the Insert tab. And in the Illustrations group, we're going to select Shapes. So you notice the shapes are categorized. You have recently used and lines, rectangles, basics, so on and so forth. Under Basic Shapes, we're going to select the third one, which is the isosceles triangle. And now what you can do is you can click and hold on your slide and draw a triangle about this size. And we're not going for exact size right here. So you select the shape and then you draw it onto your slide. Click on a blank area of your slide. Go back to the Insert tab and go back to your Shapes drop down. And this time, under the Stars and Banners category, I'm going to select a banner. Well, it says ribbon, and it says curved and tilted down. Curved and tilted down ribbon. I'm going to select that. Click and hold on my slide and draw a ribbon about that size. Then I'm going to click on a blank area of the slide and we're going to go back and grab one more shape. So we're going to go to Insert, back to Shapes. And also under Stars and Banners section, you want to find a 7-point star and then draw a star about this large on your slide. 3 separate shapes at this point. Let's go ahead and save. Before we arrange and align our objects or shapes, we're going to add more to the title box. So I'm going to click in that title, click at the end of it and press Enter. And we're going to type arranging and aligning objects. And now let's go back to the View tab on the ribbon. And in the Show group, we're going to turn on our guides. The guides will help us place stuff and align stuff on our slides the way we want to. You can also put grid lines on if you want, so you have like that grid line pattern in the back that's useful if you need it. I'm going to just leave my guides on. The first thing, we're going to go ahead and select the triangle, and I decide that it needs to be a little bit taller, so I'm going to just make it a little bit taller, a little bit wider than it is. And then you'll notice you have that shape format tab, contextual tab on your ribbon. And I'm going to give that triangle a shape color. So shape fill right here in the shape styles group. I'm going to give it that orange color. And then I'm going to select the 7-point star. And I want to give that a different color. So at this point, you can choose a different color, whatever color you'd like for your star. And then select your ribbon and give that yet a different color. And you want the colors to kind of be harmonious, maybe. So we have our shapes. We have 3 different colors. Now notice on each of them, there is an outline color. And we don't want an outline color. So I'm back on my triangle. And I'm going to go to shape outline, which is just underneath shape fill. And I'm going to choose no outline. And do that for your ribbon and your 7-point star as well. And as a matter of fact, no outline is already set. So you just have to click the button, not the drop down, to get rid of the outline at this point. And so now what we want to do is we want to move the triangle so it's right like centered, and I'm using those guides on the slide. Similar to that. We're going to drag the star. I'm going to just move this ribbon out of the way. We're going to drag the star and drop it on top of the triangle, kind of like so. And then we're going to drag the ribbon. And notice the ribbon is going behind. On my screen, the ribbon is going behind the star. And I think also the triangle. So I'm going to drop it there like in the center. And then on that shape format tab, in the arrange group with the ribbon still selected, I'm going to click on the bring forward button. So it brings it to the top of the stack. So I have my triangle on the bottom, the star on top of that, and the ribbon on top of the star. These are still 3 separate shapes. So if I move them, move one, it's going to move just that one. And what we want to do is we want to make it into one shape. So in order to make this one shape, we have to select all 3 objects. There's quite a few ways you can do this. I just clicked on a blank area of the slide, and I'm going to click above and slightly to the left outside of the shapes. I'm going to just click and hold, and I'm going to draw a box around all 3 shapes. And now, actually, all of those shapes would be selected by doing that. That's called a selection net. So you want to make sure when you draw it, you can be outside of the shapes, click and hold, and just drag across all 3 of them. And you'll see 3 separate frames, one for the triangle, one for the star, and one for the ribbon. And so all 3 shapes are selected. That's the way I commonly select multiple objects. I'll show you another way. I can click on any part of the triangle that I see, and that is now selected. Hold down your Shift key and click on a part of the star, and then click on a part of the ribbon. And sometimes it's difficult because you might deselect something you selected before by doing it that way. But that's another one, shift clicking on each object. Either way, we want all 3 of those objects selected. And on that shape format tab of the ribbon, in the arrange group, we're going to click on group. And we're going to choose group. So now we have 1 object instead of 3. If I move it, all 3 of them move at the same time. Now we use the guides to get these kind of aligned in the center of the slide. But in that Arrange group on Shape Format tab, go to your Align drop down and choose Align Middle. Go back to Align and choose Align Center. So now it's truly aligned in the center of the slide. Now, last but not least, we took 3 different shapes, gave them colors, stacked them, and made them into one shape. And we can actually save this as a picture. So imagine you're creating a logo. You can save it as a picture, and then you can insert that picture into Word, Excel, any other Microsoft program like any other picture. So what we need to do to save it as a picture is you want to right-click on the frame of it, and you'll see Save as Picture on the shortcut menu, and you can go ahead and choose that. And it takes me to my Pictures folder on my computer. I can move it anywhere I want. It's going to save it as a PNG file, and I'm going to just name it PowerPoint logo and save. So now it's on my computer, and I can use that and insert picture into a host of other applications. Go ahead and save your presentation. Something else that you can do to make your slide presentation more appealing is to animate some objects on a slide. And we're going to do that now. Let's start by duplicating our formatting text slide, which is slide 6. So I'm going to just right-click on it and duplicate it. And then I'm going to drag the duplicate so it's the last slide. On that slide, we're going to change the title to Animating Objects. And let's select the SmartArt graphic. Select all of your bullet points. And we're going to type, do not over animate. Enter. A little goes a long way. Enter. Animation is meant to keep audience attentive. Enter. If you do too much animation, comma, it will distract instead. So we have our 4 bullet points on this slide. Now what we want to happen when we're doing our slideshow and we get to this slide, we don't want it to have the SmartArt graphic on it as soon as we get to it. We want the slide to come up with just a title, and I can be saying a couple of things, and then I can have the SmartArt graphic come up through an animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the SmartArt graphic. You don't need the text pane open if you want to close that. And we're going to go to the Animations tab on the ribbon. So in the animation group, you have a whole gallery of different kinds of animations, and you can use that More button on the bottom right of the gallery to open the gallery. So you can see there are entrance animations, and that controls how things appear on the slide when they enter the slide. There's emphasis, so the item is already on the slide and it gets some emphasis through animation. And then you have exit ones where if you want it to leave the slide, it's an animation that will cause it to leave the slide. And then you have motion paths, which can go in a bunch of different directions. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose an entrance animation for this SmartArt graphic. And I'm going to select Fly In. So you could see how it flew in from the bottom really quickly, right? But also on that Animations tab, the first button is Preview. Click the upper half of that button, and you can see it, the animation again, right? It's flying in from the bottom. To the right of your animation gallery, you have Effect Options. Click that button, and notice that the direction is from the bottom. We're going to choose from bottom left. And now click your Preview button, and you can see how it changed, how it comes in from the bottom left now. Now, the thing about it is you don't want a lot of different animations in your slideshow. If I'm going to use an animation, I can use it on multiple slides. I can actually have multiple animations on a slide. But if I'm going to use like Fly In as my entrance animation, that's the only one I'm going to use in this entire presentation. So when we typed in the bullet point, if you do too much animation, it will distract instead. You don't want your audience, when you're doing a slide presentation and you go to another slide and it has yet a different animation, and then the next slide has a different animation, that becomes distracting. What your audience starts thinking is, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen when they get to the next slide, and they're not paying attention to what you're talking about on the current slide. So I tend to use one, maybe two at the most, different animations in an entire slide presentation. So that's kind of how that works. Now, if you notice on the animation pane, if you go in the timing group, the animation is going to start when I click. So let's do this. Let's go to the slideshow tab real quick and choose the second icon from current slide. So it brings up animating objects, and it won't bring up that SmartArt graphic until you click. Then it comes up, right? So we don't have to have it that way. Let's press Escape to get out of the slideshow. Go back to your animations pane. And over on the right in the timing group where it says Start on Click, we're going to do the drop down and select After Previous, or no, with Previous. Now go back to Slideshow from current slide. So this way we didn't have to click. As soon as the slide comes up with previous, right? So the slide coming up is the previous action, then it does the animation. If you want it to do that way, sometimes I want to have to click in order for the animation to show up. And go ahead and save again. So far, we applied a style to our SmartArt graphics and changed the colors. And we formatted our title text boxes so that they look very much like the SmartArt in terms of color. So we have that orange background and white font throughout. Now, another way to quote unquote pretty up your presentation is to use PowerPoint themes. So we're going to go to the Design tab of the ribbon. And so now what we're going to do is I'm just going to go up to the first slide. And I'm on the Design tab, and I have a whole gallery of themes that I can choose from. Now, because of the live preview feature, when I hover over a theme, I can see the coloration of the theme. And notice the theme is a collection. It's coloration, it's fonts, all kinds of things are included in the theme. So I'm going to go to the More button for the Themes gallery. And I'm going to locate a theme called Retrospect. Now, if you hover over them, you'll see the screen tip that comes up and it tells you the name of the theme. I'm pointing to the Retrospect theme now, and I'm going to select it. And so when you apply the theme, it applies it to every slide in your presentation. And so Retrospect is a really simple theme. right? What it does, well, it changed our coloration a little bit. So our oranges are a little bit darker than they were before, right? If I go to slide 3, you'll see that it kept our style for our SmartArt graphic. It just made the color a little bit darker, right? It put that solid color across the bottom of the slide. And if you look at slide 2, it actually has a line going across the top. So very simple little update, a little bit more visually appealing. And I'm just looking down in my preview pane on the left and seeing how it impacted all of the slides. All right. So we applied a theme. Now this is a really simple theme, and because we have SmartArt and that has its own style in it, we might want to just leave it like this. We don't want a lot of distractions. So we might just want to leave it like this, or if you like, on the design tab of the ribbon, the last button on that ribbon tab is Format Background. We could give it a solid gradient background fill color if you want. For me personally, I would leave it the way it is now. If I give it this fill color, well, that wouldn't be so bad, but I would have to repeat that for, all of it. I'm going to just go back to no color here, or white, which was the background color originally. Now, if I did want a background color on all of the slides, I could click on slide 1, scroll down so I can see slide 9, hold down my shift key and click on slide 9. So all of the slides are selected. So if I go to my background and I decide to do a background color, then it would apply to all slides. I'll go ahead and leave that color there just so you have it for reference. And I'm going to close that Format Background panel on the right. And our last topic in this module is reviewing your presentation. And so the first thing we want to do is go to the Review tab on the ribbon. And the first icon on the Review tab is Spell Check. Get in the habit of spell checking your presentations. Talking about being embarrassed, you don't want to be in the middle of a slideshow and a slide comes up and it has a typo on it. So we're going to go ahead and click on Spell Check, and it opens on the right? So it flagged Learnit, and Learnit, the company, is all together. So we're going to say ignore all for that one. And that's the only thing it found. So good. If you have other spelling errors, you can fix them. I'm going to click OK. The other part of reviewing your presentation, you would want to rehearse before presenting it, right? So how do you rehearse in PowerPoint? On the Slideshow tab in the Setup group, you have rehearse timings. So if I hover over that, it says this: practice makes perfect. Start the full screen slideshow to figure out the perfect timing for each slide. As you rehearse your presentation, PowerPoint will record how much time you spend on each slide. Once you get the timings right, you can use them to run the show automatically, meaning that when you're giving your presentation, the slideshow will start and each slide will stay on the screen for as long as it's time to stay on the screen, and then it will automatically switch to the next slide. Even if you decide not to use timings, you can still use this feature just to rehearse your presentation. So notice in that setup group that use timings is already selected by default. And we're going to go ahead and rehearse. And it's going to sound crazy while I'm doing this. And I'm not going to rehearse the whole thing. I just want to give you an idea of what this looks like, right? So we're going to go to, and you might want to wait to do this until after I get it started, because as soon as you click on rehearse timings, the countdown timer is going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Rehearse Timings, and notice the timer in the upper left. And at this point, what I would be doing is I would be saying, hello, everybody. Welcome to PowerPoint Essentials Learnit video course. My name is Trish Connor Cato, and I will be your trainer for this course. Blah, 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 blah. And you wouldn't say blah, blah. And then on that recording thing, I would do the next button. It brings up the next slide. So I'm going to say, we're going to get started by building a presentation. And I'm going to do my next button again. So before you build a presentation, you have to select a presentation type. And you do that by reviewing the available templates. And then we are ultimately going to start working with a blank template and building our presentation from scratch. And now I'm going to do next. Let me give you an overview of the PowerPoint interface. Right at the top, you have your title bar, your quick access toolbar, and your search box. You have your ribbon interface, which most Microsoft programs have. On the left side of your screen, that is the navigation pane, and in the middle of your screen is your slide pane. On the bottom of your screen, that gray band is known as the status bar, and you can actually use the notes pane to put notes that you don't want to forget to mention about your particular slide. And I'm going to do next. And I would keep talking about this slide. You know, the things that I plan to say during the presentation is what I would be saying right now with this slide up. And I'm going to do next. I guess I will go through all of them. And now you're going to learn how to format text in PowerPoint. One of the things that we did that made it more visually appealing is instead of using bullet points, we used a SmartArt graphic on several slides. And I would continue talking until I'm done with this slide, and then next. And now we're going to get into inserting and formatting images. So you can bring in images from your computer. There's a host of stock images that you can choose from. And you can also gain access to online images. So the image on the left side of the slide is a stock image, and the image on the right side of this slide is an online image. And I'm going to do my next button. And then we started with 3 separate shapes: an isosceles triangle, 7-point star, and a ribbon. And we changed the colors of those shapes. We aligned them, moved and aligned them. And then we grouped them into one shape and saved them as a picture, which can be inserted into virtually any other file. And I'm going to click next. Then we moved on to learning how to animate objects. We talked about the fact that you don't want to over animate. If you are going to use animations, use 1 or 2 tops in the same slide presentation, or they can be distracting. And then I'm going to do my next button again here. And it lets me know that the total time for my slideshow was 3 minutes and 41 seconds. Of course, it would take longer than that. I was just doing it for demonstration purposes, but I can save the slide timings by clicking yes. And so now on the slideshow tab, I'm going to click from beginning. If you've already clicked from beginning on your slideshow, go ahead and press escape to get out of there. I wanted to do something else first. I apologize for that. We're going to go to a different view. So down over to the right of your status bar, we're going to do the 4 boxes, slide sorter view. And when you go to slide sorter view, you'll see the timings that have been set for every slide. Once you rehearse, you'll then see those timings. So the first slide, after 28 seconds, right, it would go to the next slide and so on and so forth. Now, let's say you're giving the presentation and you don't need that whole 28 seconds for the first slide. Well, you can always click during the slideshow to make it automatically switch to the next slide. So now we can go on the slideshow tab, go to From Beginning. Now this is going to take 28 seconds for this one. I'm going to go ahead and click, right? The second slide is up, so I'm doing my presentation and I'm talking and I'm saying, now we're going to, select our presentation type by reviewing available templates. We're going to ultimately choose that blank template, which is what we did during the class. And after 12 seconds there, it automatically switched to the next slide for me, so I didn't have to click. And I'm going to escape to get out of the slideshow. So just a couple of other little things before we finish up this module. First thing, in slide sorter view, if you look at slide 9, right before the timing, there's a star. And that's because we added an animation to that slide. So that's your visual cue that that slide has an animation on it. Also, I want to point you to the setup group here. So we're going to uncheck use timings. Now the timings for each slide that you rehearse will stay there, but we're just saying if we run the show now, we'll have to click to advance to the next slide instead of following the timings on each slide. But also notice in that group that you have show media controls checked. So go to the first button, From Beginning. And so this is the first slide. We're going to click and it will advance to the second slide. Click again. You're on the third slide. Now, if you hover your mouse on the lower left corner, you will see those media controls. So you have a back and a forward button there. You have one that looks like a pen. If I click on that, I can grab a laser pointer and I can be pointing at different areas on the slide. I can go back and change the color of the laser pointer, or I can use a highlighter and highlight certain things on my slide during the slideshow. So that's what you get from the pen. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to erase all ink on the slide. So it gets rid of anything I did. And I'm going to get rid of that highlighter again. Let me give that another click. I'll just go back to the pointer. So you have these media controls that you can use during the slideshow if necessary. The next button over here will give you like a zoomed out view, right? So you're seeing all the slides, and I'm going to do the back button at the top. We have a search button. Well, it's actually really a zoom button, so you can actually highlight different parts of a slide during the presentation. And I'm going to press escape to get rid of that as well. And then you have the ellipsis there where you can go, some of the same things. You have your screen. Okay, let's say you're on this slide and you're doing your presentation and a conversation starts about this particular topic and the audience is engaged in that conversation. Well, to keep their focus on the conversation, you might want to black the screen or white the screen, right? Those are your choices. So it draws the audience's attention away from the presentation and directs it to the conversation that's happening. And then when I'm ready to bring it back up, I can go back to screen here. I'm still stuck on my laser pointer, but I can get there. I can go back to screen and unblack the screen, and it brings up the presentation. So I'm going to press escape to get out of this slideshow. And we're going to save our presentation again. And then we can, and by the way, Control SW works in here as well. If you want to save and close the presentation, I'm going to do Control SW, and it saved and closed the presentation. And slightly different from Excel, when we did Control SW, it saved and closed the file, but it left the Excel application open. Now, for me, I have another PowerPoint presentation that's open on my screen, so it actually closed that presentation we built. So by way of review, for PowerPoint, you learned how to navigate the PowerPoint interface and manipulate its core components, so the different types of slides and all of that kind of thing. We designed presentations, we used the blank template, we ultimately applied a theme, and we used different slide layouts during the presentation. I'd really like to thank everyone for viewing this Learnit video course on Office Basics. Again, my name is Trish Connor-Cato, and it's been my pleasure recording this video for you. Just going to take a few moments to recap what was covered in this course. So Module 1, we talked about Excel and PowerPoint essentials. In Excel, we began with an introduction to the interface, and then we moved on to entering data. We learned about the AutoFill feature. We saved the workbook file, and we also learned some other keyboard shortcuts along the way. We entered both text and numbers into Excel. Then we performed some simple calculations, and then we started building basic formulas. We used the 5 most common functions in Excel: sum, average, min, max, and the variations of count. And you learned about the difference between relative and absolute cell references while being introduced to the if function, which we used to calculate salespeople bonuses. You learned how to use cell styles to format your cells, and also how to insert rows and columns into a spreadsheet. And then you learned 2 different ways to move, copy, and paste data, as well as how to insert new worksheets, and we reviewed the printing options. With PowerPoint Essentials, we built a slideshow by selecting a presentation type, and we populated the title slide. Again, when you start a new slideshow, it gives you that one slide, a title slide. We learned how to create new slides by inserting them, as well as duplicating and editing existing slides. And we got an introduction to the PowerPoint interface. We also learned how to move slides to different positions. You learned how to format the text on the slides. We learned some keyboard shortcuts. We used a variety of techniques to make slides more visually appealing, including SmartArt graphics, Format Painter, and themes. We also inserted and formatted images and shapes on slides. We animated objects on a slide, and that's another audience pleaser. And we learned how to review your presentation by using spell check and the rehearse feature. Again, thank you for your attention, and I hope that you will view more videos out here for Learnit.